The dust swirled through the main street of Dustwood as Thomas guided his old mare past the growing crowd. The noise hit him first, shouting, jeering, the crack of a gavel on wood. An auction platform stood in the town square, and what he saw there made his stomach turn. They were selling people. His weathered hands tightened on the reins as disgust filled his chest. He'd seen enough cruelty in his 63 years. He turned to leave, wanting no part of this evil business. But then the auctioneer dragged a young girl onto the stage, and Thomas froze. There, burned into her thin arm, was a brand he knew better than his own reflection. A small star inside a crescent moon. Was this the ghost of his past he thought he had buried long ago? The brand pulled him back 15 years in an instant. That terrible night when masked bandits had descended on his ranch like demons from hell. They'd shot him twice and left him bleeding in the dirt while they burned his barn and stole everything worth taking. But the worst loss wasn't the cattle or the horses. It was Anna, his 8-year-old daughter, screaming as they threw her into a wagon and disappeared into the darkness. He'd searched for 2 years, following every lead, checking every settlement from Texas to California. Nothing. The law told him she was probably dead. Eventually, even he had to accept she was gone forever. Yet here was that brand, the one he'd designed himself, the one they both worn as a joke after she'd begged to be marked just like the cattle, so everyone would know she belonged to the Circle Moon Ranch. The girl on the platform couldn't be more than 23 now. The right age, with the same dark hair Anna had inherited from her mother. But her face was hard, her green eyes fierce, despite the fear behind them. The auctioneer, Mr. Blackwood, was a mountain of a man with greasy black hair and a voice like grinding millstones. He yanked the girl's arm up high, showing off the brand to the crowd. "Gentlemen, what we have here is prime merchandise," Blackwood bellowed. "Young, strong, perfect for housework or field labor. She's got some fight in her, but nothing a firm hand won't cure. We'll start the betting at $50 for this indentured servant contract. 5 years of honest work, all legal and proper according to territorial law." The girl tried to pull away, but Blackwood's grip was iron. Thomas pushed through the crowd, his heart pounding. The men around him were the worst kind, drifters, fubs, and wealthy ranchers who worked their servants into early graves. The fat man in a dusty suit raised his hand. $50, he called out. 60, came another voice. Thomas reached for his money pouch. He had $90, his entire savings for winter supplies. Without those supplies, his small ranch would fail. But none of that mattered now. He had to get closer, had to see her face clearly. As he pushed forward, the girl's eyes swept the crowd. For one moment, they locked with his, and something flickered there. Not recognition, but something else. Hope, maybe. Or just the desperate wish that someone, anyone, might show mercy. $75, shouted a man with rotten teeth and cruel eyes. 80, Thomas heard himself say. Blackwood grinned. "Now we're talking, gentlemen. $80 from the old-timer. Do I hear 90? 90, the fat man said immediately. Thomas's heart sank. That was everything he had. He looked at the girl again, at that brand on her arm, at the way she held herself despite the chains on her wrists. It was Anna. He knew it in his bones, the way a father knows his child's cry in a crowded room. But $90 was all he had, and the bidding was climbing. 100, someone called. 120, said another. Thomas turned and ran from the crowd. Behind him, he heard Blackwood laughing. "Where you going, old man? Had enough already." The sheriff's office was just across the street. Thomas burst through the door to find Sheriff Wade eating lunch at his desk, boots up, hat tilted over his eyes. The lawman was younger than Thomas by 20 years, soft around the middle, with the look of someone who'd never faced real trouble. "Sheriff, you have to stop that auction," Thomas said, breathing hard. "That girl, I think she's my daughter. She was kidnapped 15 years ago. She's wearing my brand." Wade didn't even look up from his meal. "Blackwood's got papers for all his servants. Legal contracts, nothing I can do about it." "Legal contracts?" Thomas slammed his fist on the desk. "She's being sold like cattle. How is that legal?" Indentured servitude is recognized by the territorial government. If someone owes a debt or commits a crime, they can work it off through service. All perfectly legal. Wade finally looked up, his eyes cold. And even if she was your daughter, you'd need proof. You got proof, old man? The brand. Lots of people got brands. That ain't proof of nothing. Wade stood up, his hand moving to his gun. Now get out of my office before I arrest you for disturbing the peace. Blackwood's got friends in high places. You don't want to cross him. Thomas left the office, his mind racing. The bidding was at $200 now. He could hear Blackwood's voice carrying across the square. There was only one thing left to do. His horse, Buttercup, and his wagon were all he had left of value. Together, they might fetch $300, maybe $350 if he was lucky. Buttercup had been with him for 12 years, through blizzards and droughts, through the loneliest nights when she was his only companion. The wagon was his lifeline, the only way to bring supplies to his ranch. But none of that mattered if Anna was standing on that platform. He found Marcus, the stable owner, mucking out stalls behind the general store. "Marcus, I need to sell Buttercup and my wagon. Right now. Cash." Marcus looked up, surprised. "Tarm, that horse is your whole operation, and winter's coming. You can't." "How much?" Marcus studied his face, then nodded slowly. $300 for both. It's less than they're worth, but it's all the cash I got on hand." Done. The money changed hands quickly. Thomas gave Buttercup one last pat on her neck, whispered an apology, and ran back to the auction. The bidding had stalled at $250. The fat man and another well-dressed rancher were locked in a slow battle, each raise coming reluctantly. $260, the fat man said. $270, the rancher countered. Thomas pushed to the front of the crowd. $300, he said, his voice cutting through the noise. Everyone turned to stare. Blackwood's grin widened. "Well, well, the old-timer's back. $300, ladies and gentlemen. Do I hear 310? The fat man shook his head and walked away. The rancher studied Thomas for a long moment, then also turned away. Nobody else spoke up. 300 was more than most men made in a year. Blackwood called. "Going twice." He brought the gavel down hard. "Sold to the old man for $300. Thomas counted out the money with shaking hands. Blackwood took it, counting each bill twice, his piggy eyes suspicious. "Pleasure doing business with you," he said. "She's all yours. 5-year contract starting today. She runs, you can shoot her. It's in the papers." Thomas took the contract without reading it and walked to where the girl stood. Up close, he could see the fear in her eyes, but also that defiance, that strength. She had Anna's stubborn chin, her mother's high cheekbones, but there was no recognition in her face when she looked at him. "Come on," he said gently. "Let's get you away from here." She followed him silently, her chains clinking with each step. They'd made it halfway across the square when Thomas heard footsteps behind them. He turned to find Blackwood and 3 of his men blocking their path. "You know, old man," Blackwood said, "I've been thinking. That was an awful lot of money you just pulled out. Makes me wonder if you're hiding more. Maybe we should discuss a finder's fee. I paid your price. We're done here." "See, that's where you're wrong." Blackwood pulled out a knife. "I think you cheated somehow. Nobody carries that kind of money. You're going to give us everything else you got, or accidents might happen. Dangerous town, Dustwood. Old men fall down and break their necks all the time." Thomas sighed. He was old. That was true. His joints ached every morning, and his eyes weren't what they used to be. But he'd fought Comanches in his youth, survived range wars, and killed his share of bad men. These town thugs didn't know what they were asking for. "Girl, step back," he said quietly. Then he moved. Age had taken his speed but not his experience. He caught Blackwood's knife hand, twisted hard, and drove his knee into the bigger man's groin. As Blackwood doubled over, Thomas pulled the man's own gun from his holster and cracked him across the skull with it. The second thug rushed him, but Thomas had been expecting that. He sidestepped and sent the man face first into a hitching post. The third man pulled his gun, but Thomas was already pointing Blackwood's weapon at him. "Drop it. That's say the matter on the train of mine, right and wrong," Thomas said. The man dropped it. The fourth thug, barely more than a boy, raised his hands without being asked. By now, a crowd had gathered. Sheriff Wade pushed through, his face red with anger. "What's going on here?" "These men tried to rob us," Thomas said. keeping the gun steady. "After I paid fair and square for this girl's contract." "That's a lie!" Blackwood groaned from the ground. "He attacked us!" Wade looked between them, then at the crowd. The townspeople were watching, waiting. For once, they weren't looking away. An old woman stepped forward. "I saw the whole thing, Sheriff. Blackwood and his boys followed them and pulled a knife. The old man was defending himself and the girl." "Me too," said a shopkeeper. Blackwood started it. More voices joined in. For the first time in years, the people of Dustwood were standing up to Blackwood. Wade's face went pale. He couldn't ignore this many witnesses. "Blackwood, you're under arrest," he said reluctantly. "You can't arrest me. I own half this town. And now you can own a jail cell. Boys, help him up." As the sheriff led Blackwood away, Thomas turned to the girl. She was staring at him with something like wonder. "You fought them. Nobody's ever fought for me before." "I'd fight the whole world for you, Anna." She flinched. "How do you know that name? Nobody's called me that in years. They just call me girl or worse." Thomas's heart broke a little. She didn't remember. Of course she didn't. She'd been 8 years old, and who knew what horror she'd endured since then. Slowly, he rolled up his sleeve, showing the faded brand on his forearm, a star inside a crescent moon, identical to hers. "Because I gave you that name the day you were born, and I gave us both these brands when you were 6. You said if the cattle belonged to the Circle Moon Ranch, then you wanted to belong too. Your mother thought we were both crazy, but she laughed when she saw how happy it made you." The girl stared at the matching brand, then at his face. Something shifted in her eyes. "I remember a story," she said slowly, "about a princess who lived on the moon. Someone used to tell it to me every night. Was that you? The Moon Princess and her magic star horse. You made me tell it, even when you were too old for fairy tales." Tears ran down her face. "Papa?" "Hello, baby girl." She collapsed against him, sobbing. Thomas held her tight, his own eyes burning with tears he'd held back for 15 years. Around them, the townspeople watched in amazement. Some of the women were crying too. Even hard men looked away, pretending to have dust in their eyes. "I thought you were dead," Anna whispered. "They told me you were dead. They told me I had nobody, that I was worthless. They lied. I searched for you for 2 years. Never stopped hoping, even when everyone said you were gone." "How did you find me?" "I didn't. God brought you back to me. Or maybe your mother's watching from heaven. I don't know. All I know is you're here now." Sheriff Wade approached them, looking embarrassed. "The contract Blackwood had on her ain't legal. I checked the papers. They're forgeries. She's free to go." Thomas nodded. He didn't care about the money anymore. He had his daughter back.
"Can we go home, Papa?"
Anna asked. "We don't have much of a home left. I sold everything to buy your freedom. Even Buttercup." "You sold Buttercup. You loved that horse. I love you more." Marcus, the stable owner, stepped out of the crowd. "Tom, I can't do this. Buttercup belongs with you." He handed back the $300. "Keep your money, but I'm holding on to the horse and wagon until you can pay me back proper. No interest. Take as long as you need." Others stepped forward too. The baker offered a month of bread. The general store owner promised credit for supplies. Even people who'd been afraid of Blackwood for years were finding their courage. The town had seen what one old man would do for love, and it shamed them into remembering their own humanity. Thomas and Anna left Dustwood that evening in the wagon, with Buttercup pulling them toward home. The Circle Moon Ranch was small and run down, nothing like it had been before the raid, but it was theirs. "I don't remember much about before," Anna said as they rode, "but I remember feeling safe. I remember being loved." "You were loved then, and you're loved now. That never changed." "What happened to them? The men who took me?" "I don't know. Don't care anymore either. All that matters is you're here." The sun set behind them as they climbed the hill to the ranch. The old house needed paint, and the fence was falling down in places, but Anna smiled when she saw it. "I remember this," she said. "I remember the swing you built. Is it still there?" "In the barn, waiting to be rehung." "And my room?" just like you left it. They pulled up to the house as the first stars appeared. Anna looked at the brand on her arm, then at the stars above. First days, you know what? I'm glad we have these brands. When things got bad, when I forgot who I was, I could look at this and remember that somebody once loved me enough to mark me as theirs. It kept me alive. You're not property, Anna. You never were. That brand means you belong with us, not to us. I know, Papa. That's what kept me strong, knowing I belonged somewhere, even if I couldn't remember where. They entered the house together. It would take time to heal, time to rebuild both the ranch and their relationship. Anna had 15 years of pain to work through. Thomas had 15 years of guilt. But they had each other now, and that was enough to start with. Some might say it was coincidence that brought Anna to that auction platform just as Thomas was passing by. Others might call it fate or divine intervention. Thomas didn't much care what anyone called it. All he knew was that hope could survive even the longest night, that love could bridge even the widest gulf, and that sometimes, if you're very lucky, what was lost can be found again. The Circle Moon Ranch had its family back. The star had returned to the moon, and in a harsh land where happy endings were rare as rain in August, an old man and his daughter had been given a second chance at the life that was stolen from them. If you enjoyed this story of a father's love and the endurance of hope against impossible odds, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more tales from the Old West.